AMN Drive Time is sponsored by Aishin, your trusted and reliable source for aftermarket automotive components and technology. Visit aishinaftermarket.com for more information.
Bill, good morning and welcome to AMN Drive Time, sponsored by our good friends at Aishin.
Morning, Bill. It's great to be with you. I'm sorry I couldn't be in the studio in person with you, but I appreciate the opportunity to spend some time with you and our industry friends.
Glad to have you, and you shared ahead of time, and I'm sure our audience would have known you had your fourth grandchild was born Monday, just a couple of days ago, so you want to be hanging around the hoop for that for sure.
Yeah, it's safer that way.
So, Bill, this year, 2024, marks MEMA's 120th anniversary. Tell me how MEMA began, and if you could, just a few what you might consider pivotal moments in the history of the organization.
Yeah, thanks, Bill. You know, it's always an impressive benchmark or landmark when any organization hits that kind of milestone of 120 years, and it's certainly impressive for a trade association to do the same. You know, in preparation for the 120th, we have gone through all of the minutes of all of the board meetings and annual meetings, and I'll tell you, it's just fascinating. So MEMA was formed on March 2nd, 1904, at the Hollenden Hotel in Cleveland, Ohio, where, as the minutes say, half a hundred parts manufacturers showed up that day to form what was the Motor and Accessory Manufacturers Association, now known as MEMA. And, you know, when you look back over the minutes in that time, there were 16 directors that formed MEMA, including some names that I think people will recognize today in some companies, certainly Timken Manufacturing with Mr. Timken, that was a founding director. A gentleman by the name of Howard Raymond, who was with B.F. Goodrich. He was a former chair of B.F. Goodrich and a board of directors at the time. Interestingly, there were no suppliers, manufacturers from Detroit, but many that joined were from the Midwest and even from the Northeast. A company called Veeder, which is now Root Veeder today, they made cyclometers that measured distance. So the odometers in vehicles today, also the meters on gas pumps back at the time, but really interesting, and some powerful people at the time that came with a vision, quite frankly, that recognized they were stronger together and working with each other to help move the industry forward. You know, when you look at the minutes, it says the purpose of the organization was, and I'll just quote this, the promotion and protection of everything related to the parts and accessory manufacturers and of the automobile trade. You mentioned what were, you know, some of the key moments throughout MEMA's history, and certainly there were many, but maybe a few highlights. You know, for the first 80 years of the 120, there was only MEMA. Members only joined MEMA as an organization. The divisions that were market segments under MEMA hadn't been created until 1983. But over that time, in 1914, MEMA launched credit reporting services to help suppliers get paid. In 1933, MEMA co-sponsored the first automotive service industry show, as we remember it as Asia, and now was the forerunner of Apex. We opened the DC office in 1960, helped pass the pivotal National Vehicle Safety Act in 1966, and then launched the market segments HDMA, the Heavy Duty Manufacturers Association, in 1983. The original Equipment Suppliers Association was opened in 1988. The Automotive Aftermarket Suppliers Association, the one that I joined, MEMA, some 11 years ago as president, and then MERA, the remanufacturing market segment, in 2011. And finally, MEMA played a pivotal role in 2019 in helping pass USMCA and certainly navigating the issues with 2008 bankruptcies with OEMs, and then finally the repositioning of MEMA for the future, which we initiated in January of 2023, and simultaneously launched the Center for Sustainability to help suppliers no matter where they were on their sustainability journey. So those are just a few of the highlights, but certainly there's a lot more that suppliers throughout its history tried to navigate as we saw the change in the industry occur.
So, Bill, I bet I'm right to assume that you've got a number of things going on in 2024 to celebrate this 120-year anniversary. Are there things that you can share with our AMN audience of what you guys are thinking about?
Well, certainly we'll share highlights and key moments throughout MEMA's history, kind of in a monthly editorial. We'll also share a lot of that information at all of our events throughout the year. We are investigating two things. One is the creation of a MEMA history book that will help identify some of the key points throughout the last 120 years. And we're also contemplating having a 120th anniversary reception celebration, inviting some of MEMA's past chairmen and key members and things. So that's still in the planning. But certainly there's a lot that we're working on and hopefully able to pull most of it off.
Bill, you mentioned you've been with the organization for 11 years. You started as president of the aftermarket piece, the aftermarket part of MEMA, and now you're head of all of MEMA. Are there any things that stand out, meaningful memories over the last 11 years, certain members? Are there anything that just stuck out to you, funny stories, happenings over the past 10, 11 years that come to mind for you personally?
You know, there are a few minutes that experiences that were very meaningful for me, and I think the industry as a whole. I remember taking a group of key MEMA CEOs for a meeting with Vice President Pence at the time during the Trump administration. And we met in the Roosevelt Room at the White House, which is a short putt from the Oval Office. And we were there to help bring key language regarding the passing of USMCA so that suppliers would have, I'll say, a level playing field, excuse me, with the introduction and relaunch of USMCA. And it was just a proud moment, one, to be in the White House meeting with senior advisors to the president, meeting with Vice President Pence at the time, and just seeing our industry at work to help really move something very meaningful forward. This might sound a little less impactful, but Each day we get to watch our members come together as a community to work on key areas to advance the business interest in the industry overall. And just watching the work that's being done, particularly as it relates to young people, the launch of now in our 11th year for the Young Leaders Council, which is a 2-year program within our OE community, OE supplier community, and now our reverse mentoring program on the aftermarket with what we refer to as MIX. It's just so rewarding to watch the development of young people entering in our industry and growing. I would say those are two that come to mind. I'm sure I could probably find some other funny stories, but I'll leave it at that.
So, Bill, you touched on it a little early in our conversation about the organizational change that you guys went through at the beginning of 2023. And at the time, we actually did an AMN drive time interview with you about that change. So you're a little over a year in. Talk about how's it going, how has it benefited MEMA, how has it benefited the industry?
Yeah, thanks for asking that too. And yes, MEMA did take in 2023 some bold steps to realign the association and position it for the future. And what we had identified at the time, Bill, you may remember, is that we had recognized that MEMA being a 120-year-old organization, being 120 years, can't act 120 years old, and that our industry was going through significant transformation and change. And we found that in each one of MEMA's market segments, whether it was commercial vehicle aftermarket, light vehicle aftermarket, commercial vehicle original equipment suppliers, or light vehicle suppliers, that suppliers were dealing with the same issues across all those market segments. The rate of expanded and accelerated transformation and change in technology, supply chain issues, workforce development, and on and on. So the realignment was organized, one, to position us to be more agile and meet the needs of our members in those areas specifically, and also to provide greater access and open up really the full value of what MEMA provides in platforms for industry dialogue. So we're through our freshman year. We've learned a lot, but I couldn't be more pleased. And I couldn't be more excited about the future, quite frankly. The engagement levels that we have seen in MEMA by our members has almost been record level at every event. The Vision Conference last year, each year continues to get better and better, and that was a record attendance. Apex, as you know, is very strong, and some of our other town halls and events that we've had, one previously that we do with the General Motors Town Hall. Previously, the high attendee mark was 800. We had a Stellantis Town Hall coming right off the realignment in January that had 1,200 MEMA members that attended. So again, it's allowed us to be more agile. It's allowed us to provide greater access and content for our members, and I think we're on a good path.
So, Bill, as you celebrate the 120th this year, you're coming off your freshman year of the reorganization, which is going very well. Do you have any thoughts about the next? I think it's hard to talk about anything more than 5 years and maybe anything more than 2 or 3 years, as fast as the world is moving today, right? And are there any thoughts for you just over the next 24 months of what MEMA may be thinking about or looking at or contemplating?
Yeah, I think, we go back, Bill, to MEMA's vision. And that is our guidepost for driving toward the future. And where our aim is, and where we hope to take and lead the industry to, is to a growing, profitable, innovative, and influential supplier community. And our mission statement that goes along with that is to advance the business interests of our members and the industry as a whole. So when I think about those two things, there are a number of areas underneath that are quite pivotal. One, we are planning to elevate and strengthen the supplier and industry voice in Washington, D.C. And we've added new resources that will help us achieve that. Certainly trying to continue to strengthen our advocacy in Washington in the wake of all the regulations and the industry's global commitment, I'll say, to right to repair. We also are planning to add greater content, platforms for industry dialogue, if you will, to really bring certainty, greater certainty, to the broad range of possibilities in our industry. Kind of take some of the guesswork out of the sound bites that we hear in the news about the timeframes for transportation or transformation, with EVs and so forth. MEMA has launched the Center for Sustainability, and many of our members are I'll say, well entrenched. Others are just beginning. And the center is designed to help members no matter where they are on their journey in kind of moving to the next step. So those are just a few. And then additionally, we're focused on attacking, I'll say, U.S. manufacturing competitiveness. There are a number of barriers that create an unlevel playing field for suppliers in the U.S., particularly when we're looking to kind of address some of the supply chain challenges and move manufacturing back to North America and the United States. So we'll be elevating that area. I saw a recent stat about the cost to suppliers of just complying with the regulations that are enforced on our industry and manufacturing as a whole, and the numbers are just staggering. And then I think finally, we're going to continue to focus on opening new markets and helping members expand their global reach and global trade. So a number of years ago, MEMA created what we refer to as the G7. And we're working with the top 7 trade associations for suppliers around the world. We meet, I'll say, at least annually in their countries or ours to talk about areas for standardization and how we can move some of these regulatory issues like access to vehicle data and right to repair. So those give us great insights and contacts into those markets that can benefit suppliers. So those are a few.
So, Bill, you've been a guest on Drive Time on a few occasions, and hopefully you've seen a few other Drive Times that you weren't even a part of. But it is a tradition where we do something called the lightning round, where I'm gonna ask.
I forgot about the lightning round.
Well, I didn't. Fortunately, I didn't. So I'm going to ask you some questions, and you're going to give me a quick answer.
Ready to go.
All right. What year was your first major industry show? So let's say, I know it was well before APEC, so let's call it Asia. What year was your first Asia show?
I'd say sometime in the mid-'80s.
Either Chicago or Vegas, right?
Oh, for sure.
Yep.
I can vividly remember Chicago uh, and all the challenges of McCormick Place at the time.
Second question. What's your favorite hotel in Vegas?
The Bellagio. I should say the Venetian, but hopefully they won't hear this.
Well, they're all good, right?
They're all good.
What motivates you to get up and get going in the morning?
You know, I have a very firm answer for that. The things that keep me up awake at night are the things that get me out of bed in the morning.
I like it. Are you a coffee or a tea guy or none of the above?
I limit myself to 100 cups a day, coffee. Once I get to that, I'm shut off.
I like your discipline. Are you a drifter or a drag racer?
Drag racer.
But you're a circle track guy, really, right?
Yeah. Although back in the day, I was known to do a little drag racing. We'll keep that to ourselves.
Okay. What's the farthest? This is kind of relating to your G7 thing. What's the furthest place you've traveled around the globe for an aftermarket business or an aftermarket event?
The Northeast to Australia. It's the flight from New York to Sydney at the time was the longest nonstop commercial flight in the world at 21 and a half hours. So Australia.
Who is one person that has inspired you over the years?
There are several, but not to exclude anybody, but Mort Schwartz has been an industry icon. You know, I'd add Larry Pavey, John Washbish, Larry McCurdy, Fred Manchesky would probably be at the top of the list. Fred was the chairman of Eklund, but I've been fortunate, as you have, Bill. We've both been blessed to get to know and work with some great industry icons that every one of them has been an inspiration and a mentor.
Bill, great to be with you on AMN Drive Time, sponsored by our friends at Aishin.
Thanks for having me, Bill, and I look forward to seeing you in person, perhaps at Vision, if not sooner.
AMN Drive Time is sponsored by Aishin, your trusted and reliable source for aftermarket automotive components and technology. Visit aishinaftermarket.com for more information.